You feel it, don't you? That pull, that ache. That person who shows up and suddenly your logic vanishes. You tell yourself it's love, it's chemistry, it's fate. But what if it's none of those things? What if it's your past, calling you back? Carl Jung didn't believe in soulmates, he believed in patterns. And he warned, the people who ignite your deepest desire aren't random, they're recruits, sent by your unconscious to replay a story you never finished. That intense attraction, the one that feels like magic, is often something far darker, a psychological echo of your unhealed wounds. You're not falling for them, you're falling for what they represent. The woman who withdraws love, she mirrors the mother who made you earn affection. The man who's emotionally closed off, he echoes the father who only noticed you when you succeeded. And your psyche doesn't see danger, it sees hope. Hope that this time you'll finally be chosen. This time you'll finally be enough. That's not love, that's repetition. A trauma loop disguised as passion. Because your nervous system doesn't crave safety, it craves familiarity, even if that familiarity is pain, even if that familiarity is abandonment. Your body doesn't know the difference between intensity and intimacy. It only knows, this feels like home. And so you return, again and again, to the ones who break you not because you're broken, but because you're trying to fix what was never yours to fix. Jung called this the shadow, the hidden, denied parts of yourself you've buried to survive. And when you meet someone who embodies your shadow, your soul doesn't see a person. It sees a missing piece, a solution, a second chance. But here's the truth. That missing piece was never lost. It was suppressed. Maybe you were a boy told to be strong, to never cry, to never show weakness. So you buried your sensitivity. Now, decades later, you're obsessed with a woman who's deeply emotional, nurturing, open, because she carries the softness you killed in yourself. But the moment she asks you to show up with that same depth, you panic. You shut down, because you don't know how to be that man. Or maybe you were a girl taught to be quiet, to please, to stay small, so you buried your fire. Now, you're drawn to men who are bold, dominant, unapologetically powerful, because they embody the strength you were never allowed to claim. But the moment they want you to stand as an equal, to speak your truth without apology, you hesitate, because you don't trust your own voice. This is why so many relationships start with fireworks and end in silence. Because the initial attraction isn't about who they are, it's about what they awaken in you. The fantasy that this time, you'll finally be healed. That this time, you'll finally belong. But healing doesn't come from another person. It comes from within. And when the fantasy fades, and the real human emerges, flawed, messy, imperfect, you don't know how to love them. You only know how to love the idea of them. The idea that they'll save you, fix you, complete you. And when that illusion shatters, you don't just lose the relationship, you lose the story you were living. The story that said, if I just love hard enough, I'll finally be worthy. That story isn't about them, it's about you. Now, let's talk about the ones who know this, consciously or not. There are women who've learned that logic doesn't move men. Mystery does. Absence does. They don't need to chase. They just need to be just out of reach. They offer intense physical connection, but withhold emotional intimacy and create a bond stronger than most men can break. They don't want love. They want power. And they get it through desire. The more he tries to close the gap, the more he invests, the more he needs, the more in control she feels. This isn't romance, it's psychological dominance, disguised as seduction. And she may not even realize she's doing it. Maybe she was a little girl who only got attention when she performed. So now, as an adult, she only feels valuable when she's being pursued. She doesn't want intimacy, she wants proof. Proof that she's desired, that she matters, that she's not invisible. And when a man becomes obsessed, she feels alive. But the moment he asks for real connection, vulnerability, consistency, emotional presence, she runs, because that's not what she signed up for. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a worshiper. And worship doesn't require truth. It requires illusion. On the other side, there are men who do the same. Men who confuse silence with strength, who believe love means control, not connection. They don't fall in love. They conquer. And the women they attract? Often, they're the ones who grew up believing love means suffering, who were taught that the harder it is, the more it must mean something. So when a man is cold, distant, emotionally unavailable, her unconscious lights up. There it is, the challenge, the one I have to earn. And so she gives more, tries harder, loses herself. Because in her mind, love isn't given, it's won. But here's the tragedy. No amount of chasing will heal a wound that requires stillness. No amount of seduction will fill a void that demands self-worth. And no amount of obsession will rewrite a past that can only be integrated, not erased. Jung didn't tell us this to make us cynical. He told us this to make us conscious. Because awareness is the only way out. The only way to break the cycle is to stop asking, why do I keep choosing the wrong people? And start asking, what part of me is choosing for me? What unhealed child is still calling the shots? What old pain is masquerading as passion? Because until you answer that, you'll keep meeting the same person in 1,000 different bodies. You'll keep calling it love when it's really longing. You'll keep calling it fate when it's really trauma. And the more intense the connection feels, the more dangerous it likely is, because intensity is not a measure of compatibility, it's a measure of unresolved emotion. That's why the most toxic relationships are often the hardest to leave. Not because you love them too much, but because you're haunted by them. They don't just remind you of the past, they recreate it. And your unconscious, in its desperate hope to finally heal, keeps pulling you back. This is what Jung called the repetition compulsion, the tendency to recreate painful experiences in the hope that this time, you'll survive them. That this time, you'll finally be chosen. That this time, you'll finally be enough. But healing doesn't happen in repetition. It happens in recognition. The moment you see the pattern, the spell begins to break. The moment you realize, I'm not attracted to her. I'm attracted to the hope that she'll fix what my mother couldn't. You gain power. Because now you're not a victim of your desires. You're an investigator of them. And that changes everything. So what's the alternative? Do we stop feeling attraction? Do we shut down desire? No. But we must stop trusting it blindly. We must stop assuming that what feels intense is what's true. Instead, we must learn to question our cravings. Ask, does this person make me feel safe or just addicted? Do I feel like myself around them or like a version I think they want? Am I choosing them or is my past choosing for me? Because real love doesn't panic. It doesn't obsess. It doesn't leave you feeling drained, confused, or broken. Real love grounds you. It doesn't make your heart race with anxiety. It makes your soul feel held. And yes, at first that might feel boring, because your nervous system is used to the storm, used to the highs and lows, the drama, the chaos. Peace feels foreign. Calm feels suspicious. But that's not because real love is dull. It's because your trauma is loud. And when you've spent a lifetime addicted to intensity, stillness can feel like emptiness. But it's not. It's freedom. It's the space where you can finally breathe, where you don't have to perform, where you don't have to chase, where you can just be. And that's where true intimacy begins, not in the fireworks, but in the quiet. Not in the obsession, but in the presence. Jung's ultimate goal was individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating every part of yourself, the light, the dark, the masculine, the feminine, the wounded child, the wise adult. And only when you've done that can you love from wholeness, not lack. Only then can you choose, not because you need someone to fix you, but because you want to share your life with someone who reflects your healing. That's when attraction transforms. That's when desire becomes clarity. You stop being drawn to people who mirror your pain and start being drawn to people who reflect your peace. And here's the beautiful irony. The people who truly heal you won't feel like destiny. They'll feel like home. Not the home of your trauma, the home of your truth. They won't make you feel crazy in love. They'll make you feel seen. They won't keep you guessing. They'll show up. They won't make you beg for attention. They'll give it freely. And when you finally meet them, you might not even realize it at first, because it won't feel like a storm. It'll feel like the sun after years of rain. So the next time your heart races, don't act. Pause. Breathe. Ask, is this excitement, or is this fear wearing a mask? Is this love, or is this my past begging for a rewrite? Because the most powerful love story you'll ever live isn't with someone else. It's with the parts of you that have been screaming to be heard. Listen to them, heal them, love them. And then, you'll be ready to love someone else without losing yourself. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's not giving up on passion, that's upgrading it. And if this resonated, if it made you rethink every relationship you've ever had, if it made you uncomfortable in the way that only truth can, then know this: you're not alone. Hit like, because this message needs to be seen. Comment mirror if you finally understand why you keep falling for the same type. Share this with someone who's stuck in the loop. And subscribe, because we're not just making videos. We're building a revolution of self-awareness, of healing, of real love. Remember, you don't attract who you want, you attract who you haven't healed. So heal loud, love from wholeness, and watch your entire world transform. Let's be real for a second. You didn't fall into these patterns because you're broken or weak. You fell into them because you were trying to survive. Because at some point, maybe when you were 5 or 12 or 22, you learned that love came with strings, that you had to earn it, that if you weren't interesting enough, pretty enough, strong enough, quiet enough, you wouldn't be chosen. And so your heart learned to chase the familiar even when it hurt. You didn't fall for toxic people because you like pain. You fell for them because they felt like love, because the way they pulled away, the way they kept you guessing, the way they made you feel needed, that was the closest thing you ever got to feeling seen. And that's not your fault. But here's the thing. Now that you know, you don't have to keep living it. You don't have to keep showing up for people who only give you half their heart and expect all of yours. You don't have to keep mistaking obsession for connection. Real love shouldn't leave you anxious, drained, or questioning your worth. It shouldn't feel like a battle you have to win. It should feel like resting, like finally taking a breath after holding it for years. I know that kind of peace might feel underwhelming at first, because if you've spent your life chasing storms, calm can feel boring. But it's not. It's just different. And different doesn't mean wrong. It means healing. The right person won't make you lose sleep wondering where they stand. They'll show you. They won't make you earn their attention. They'll give it freely. And yeah, that might not feel intense at first, but intensity isn't the same as depth. Sometimes the deepest love is the quiet kind, the kind that shows up, that stays, that sees you. Not the version you perform, but the messy, tired, real you, and says, I'm here. So before you fall for someone else, fall back in love with the parts of you that have been hurting in silence. Heal not because you're not enough, but because you are. And when you do, you won't need to chase love. It'll find you, because you'll finally be ready to receive it, not as a rescue, but as a partnership. That's not magic. That's maturity. And that's the kind of love worth staying for.